when Genesis became its own brand, Hyundai really tapped into something that they had never been in before. So you guys have to remember, let's take a little history lesson. Genesis used to be a model for Hyundai. So back in like 2009, 2010, 11, we had the Genesis sedan and the Genesis coupe, which a lot of people love the coupe because it's easily tunable. It came with, you know, pretty good performance options. And the main thing was it did not cost a lot of money. It was a affordable sports car. Now, in about 2017, 2016, Hyundai announced that Genesis was becoming its own brand. So they decided that because their Genesis level cars were very basically highly luxury, high executive models, they were going to create their own brand. And thus, this thing was born. So this right here is a 2022 Genesis G70, which in terms of where it stands, this is like their Genesis's entry level sort of luxury sedan that it competes with the BMW 3 Series, the Mercedes C-Class, and the Audi A4 in those segments respectively. Now, this thing is honestly the underdog because think about it. Genesis, I mean, it's a brand new car company, right? We know that Hyundai has been established since the 90s. People love Hyundais, they're affordable and everything. But most people, when they think of luxury, expensive, you don't think of Hyundai. You think of Mercedes, Audi, Lexus. But now this thing has come in hitting hard. I mean, I honestly, from the short amount of time I spent with this car so far, it's been pretty cool. I mean, it's a nice car. But let's go ahead and talk about the look. So I am actually a big fan of the look of this car. I think it's very muscular and very handsome looking, which it's kind of hard to pull off both. You can't have both an aggressive and a handsome car. But I think this one does it well because of just how the profile of the car is. So the front, we do have this big grille, which is nice. We do have these headlights that are basically split into two. So you have the main headlight and then of course your turn signal and daytime running lights. Now this one does have aftermarket, you know, components on it. You guys can see it has an aftermarket carbon fiber hood. It does have aftermarket niche, however you prefer to say it, wheels, which look awesome in the bronze against this blue. And of course it does have a rear carbon fiber trunk, which also has this little ducktail sort of integrated in it, which is pretty cool. Now, of course, also that exhaust is modified, which you guys will hear once we, you know, take it on the street. But nonetheless, I honestly, from looking at this car, I get Alfa Romeo Giulia vibes. I think the way it's styled is very Italian and it's very out of Hyundai's own like comfort zone. They definitely stepped out of their comfort zone designing this car. Of course, we do have that continuing split of the taillights back here as the headlights in the front. You do have those nice quad tips in the back. You guys can see them in there. I kind of wish that they didn't hide them with the oval, but it is what it is. But it's honestly a very nice looking car, and this blue is absolutely stunning. The car is kind of dirty, but other than that, the blue is stunning. I mean, and when you guys see what the interior looks like, it's gonna blow you away. But speaking of the interior, let's move in there. So here's the key to the car. Very nice key. It has a good amount of weight to it. I mean, it is plastic, but it doesn't feel cheap. So of course you have lock, which now the car's locked, and it does have remote start. This is one thing I wish the Germans offered, and they do nowadays, but you have to download some app on their phone. You can't do it from a key. I kind of wish they would just give you a key where it's easy. You don't have to mess with the app. But coming in to start it up, you just lock it and then you hold the button, and then there it is. And you guys can hear that aftermarket exhaust I was telling you guys. It does have a rear muffler delete, so it does sound pretty good. We'll get into that in the drive, but let's go ahead and check the interior. So this, I gotta say, is the perfect spec. This beautiful blue with this beautiful white interior. I am a sucker for white interiors, and this thing is awesome. Looking at first things first, this diamond quilted stitching on the seats is absolutely beautiful. I mean, this is amazing. It is very nicely done. These bolsters right here hold you in very well. The leg bolsters also hold you in very well, because you guys got to remember, this is a higher end G70. This isn't the 2-liter, this is the 3.3T. So this is like their, you know, sort of mini AMG, mini M340 BMW fighter, what it's supposed to do. But hopping in it, you get a good amount of room in here. I get a lot of BMW vibes from this sort of dash design, you know, with the infotainment screen, how it looks, and then the swooping dash sort of, it gives me BMW vibes. I mean, maybe I'm not the only one. And then the way the push button is, but to start it up, of course, foot on the brake, So as you guys can hear, again, that aftermarket exhaust, we'll get into that in a little bit. But so you have this really weird partial dash, I guess you can call it. It's not a full, you know, digital dash, but it does have the digital on the right, and then it's an analog sort of, you know, gauge for the miles and the fuel, which honestly I kind of like that. That's pretty cool that they do that. You know, they give you a taste of both worlds. But looking at this interior, it does scream high-end. I mean, diamond stitching on the doors. You have this really nice looking, you know, aluminum finish. I mean, it's plastic, but it looks very nice. And of course that does also carry over to the center console. But one thing I have to give Genesis is I love these buttons. So these are, of course, not, they're plastic as well, but they feel metal and they feel very high quality. I really like that. Of course, you do get a full suede Alcantara style sort of headliner. It's not full Alcantara, you can tell, but it's almost there. So it's very nice, and I do like it. But looking at the rest of it, I love the way they designed, you know, basically this whole drop down screen. So everything is really centered towards the driver. So you have your main screen. Of course, if you click it, it'll switch off between different things. You can pick from, you know, map or whatever you want to do. It's pretty responsive, and I do like how quick it is. Of course, you do also have these buttons here, which will take you to the main one. So we can click radio. It'll take us to the radio, and I do like that old school style design up there where it's like an old radio or something. Pretty cool. Media, of course, it'll take us to all the media stuff, and then, you know, navigation, all that. So it's very easy to use, and of course you can also click it. So if you just swipe it like that, it'll do everything from there. You could click menu and you could pick from there. It is pretty quick. I do like that it's, you know, relatively quick and it's not laggy. That gives it a more high-end vibe. Of course, I love the fact that they didn't integrate these into the screen. They're manual buttons and they feel pretty good. So they're knobs, but it feels pretty good when you turn them. They do feel solid. And of course, this one does have a heated steering wheel. You do have cooled seats, heated seats, of everything, full blown. Down there, some power outlets. And of course, because this one is the upgraded, you know, G70, it does come with this, they call it the Lexicon sound system. I mean, it's all right. It's nothing to be blown away by. I think the ones in the Mercedes, like their Bang & Olufsen systems, are just better. I mean, you know, BMW's got, I believe they still use Harman Kardon. Their sound systems are better as well. This just feels like a decent sound system. It doesn't feel anything crazy. It's not going to blow your doors off, but it is good. I mean, it's definitely up there. So it's not a horrible one. I just kind of wish that, you know, when you upgrade it to the top end model, they would give you an upgraded sound system, sort of. But yeah, down here we do have the drive mode. So if you click it that way, you can see as Eco, Sport, Sport Plus. Of course, you kind of want to drive in Sport. That's where it's at. And now the cool thing is when you put it in like Comfort or Sport, as you guys can see, I'm going to show you guys, I'm not sure if you're going to see it, but the bolsters close in. So now we're in Comfort. If I switch it to Sport mode, I'm not sure if you guys can see, but it closes in the bolsters basically to hold you in a little bit tighter, because, you know, it knows you're gonna be doing some shenanigans. But okay, now I must say the one thing I don't like is this digital dash. The steering wheel, as I was saying, is very nice, but it is confusing because none of these buttons actually do what you think they do. So if you start pressing these, like you press them in or anything like that, it doesn't do anything. I mean, as you guys can see, it doesn't actually do anything. So maybe I'm just missing the point or something, but the only way you change that middle screen is with this button. So you just click it and it only gives you like 2 different, you know, screens. I mean, here you can definitely change them between the different ones with this toggle wheel, but I think it's kind of confusing the way they designed it. You know, obviously if you live with the car, it'll be a lot easier to know, but I think that they should have just made it like one button to where you didn't have to scroll different buttons and use this. But maybe I'm just complaining, right? So over here, if we click mode, it takes you to different modes on the, like, as you guys can see, we can change between Bluetooth and all the different stuff. You can customize what these buttons do, which is pretty cool. But yeah, honestly, pretty nice interior. I am a fan of it. But I know what you guys really want to see is that engine and then the drive. So let's go ahead and check out what's underneath the hood. Now, of course, I must show you guys the rear seats, and I gotta say, there's no leg room back here. Now, I do have the seat adjusted as to how I like it, and of course it does have that comfort access, so it will move up just a little bit after I, you know, fire the car up. But I'm not a fan of the seat leg room back here. So little kids may fit pretty well, and I mean, maybe I just pushed the seat too far back, but I don't even want to get in here because there's literally no room. I mean, look at this. So maybe that's something they kind of have to think about. I mean, it does compete pretty well with other cars in this segment, you know, BMW 3 Series and the C-Class. They're not the roomiest cars in the back either, but I mean, this is kind of I don't know, I kind of wish that they would put more room back here. So Genesis, if you're watching this video randomly, you know, maybe think about increasing legroom a little bit. Maybe, as I said, maybe it's just me and it's because after I fired up, the seat will move up just a little bit. Maybe it'll give you just that much room, but I don't know, that's just not enough room. But let's go ahead and take a look at that motor. So here it is, the heart of the beast. You guys might recognize this thing because this thing comes in another car that's actually kind of legendary. Something you may know is the Kia Stinger GT. Yeah, so Hyundai and Kia share a lot of parts together because both Korean manufacturers, they kind of work well together, and a lot of their stuff is very shared. A lot of their platforms are shared. I mean, you have the Hyundai Palisade and the Kia Telluride. They're the same SUV, just different badges. But yeah, and of course this thing does make about 365 horsepower and 376 pound-feet of torque. Now for 2020, they did boost it up a little bit, so it makes 368 power, same torque. So they boosted up by like 3 horsepower. I mean, it's nothing, you know, crazy. You're not going to feel it. But honestly, this motor is pretty solid. From what I've driven it so far, it is pretty responsive and it's pretty quick. The one thing I must say I got to complain about is I'm not a fan of when it's at idle, you can't rev the car. And I mean, that's probably not the motor. That's probably something with the tuning. I'm just not a big fan because it, you know, it defeats the purpose of modifying it, right? I mean, if you can't really rev it, I mean, you can, but you have to like hold the pedal down and then it does this weird like hybrid rev. It's very strange. But yeah, honestly, this one, as you guys can see, does have some upgraded goodies. It does have an aftermarket intake system, and I do believe it does have an aftermarket blow-off valve because it's pretty pronounced when you let off, but as you guys can see. But yeah, let's move on to the driving aspect of this car. So I've been cruising in the Genesis G70 for, I want to say, about the last 10 minutes, and I like it a lot. I mean, the car is very well balanced. It's very peppy and very quick. I was actually kind of surprised because I've driven a Kia Stinger GT, and I mean, I don't know, this one may be tuned, I'm not sure, you know, with all the aftermarket stuff it's got, but it drives super nice and it's very quick. So I guess my biggest thing with this car is it shocked me with how good it is. I mean, as I said in the beginning of this video, this car is the underdog, right, in this segment, because you have brands like Mercedes and Audi that are established within, you know, this segment, because you have cars like the C63, the M3, you know, the Audi S4. I mean, they're established cars in this segment, and when you think of them, you're like, oh, I know those cars, you know, they're pretty famous, they've been around a long time. Genesis hasn't. And I gotta tell you guys, with the last 10 minutes of driving this thing is coming in hitting hard. I mean, this is a nice car, and I am kind of biased towards German cars, and I gotta say, this is a very nice car. I mean, the interior is super comfortable. You know, right now I have it in sport mode, which is the only mode you should drive it in, because I feel like it makes the gear response on the transmission just so much better, and it shifts better, and it gives you those downshift blips, and you get those little pops. I mean, it's awesome. But of course, you can throw it in comfort mode. This one, it typically would quiet it down, but this one, as I said, has the rear muffler delete, so it's just constantly kind of loud. But honestly, I gotta tell you guys, I'm amazed. I mean, this thing drives so nice. I'm gonna put it back in sport mode because we gotta drive in sport mode. But I mean, very comfortable. You know, like I said, I was driving it around, if you guys know, here by Allegiant Stadium. I was coming down that way, and the road here is not nice. I mean, it should be, but it's not. So it's very bumpy. And this thing takes the bumps like there's no, you know, it's solid. I mean, it almost acts like a full-size luxury car with air suspension, and it's not. That's what's awesome about it. And, you know, I gotta say, I really am kind of taken aback, but just by how nice Genesis kind of came out with this car. I mean, being their first car in this segment, this is solid. I mean, this is a very solid car. And of course, that 3.3, I mean, I've driven one before, but it's almost weird because the one I drove in the Kia Stinger GT, it was quick, don't get me wrong, but this one feels quicker. So that's what makes me think this car is tuned, because this thing is very quick. I mean, it gets up and moves. Now, the one thing I gotta say is, if you put a Kia Stinger GT and the G70 in front of me, I'd probably go for the G70. I kind of like the way the interior is a lot better than the Stinger, because the Stinger had a lot of plastic in the interior and it was very noticeable. This car has plastic, but the way it's designed, it's not very noticeable. So I gotta give credit to Genesis for that, is that it feels very high quality in here, while it also doesn't cost $60,000-$70,000 like some other, you know, competitors do. And as I said in the beginning, this car does not compete with the C63 or the M3, because those are just, you know, those are like the full high performance ones. This one more, in my opinion, competes with the BMW M340i, with the Mercedes C43 AMG. So not the full-blown crazy cars, but honestly, I wouldn't put you down if you pick this over them, because this is a genuinely nice car, and I would not mind daily driving this. You know, before coming into this review, I was, as I said, German car fan. I love Mercedes. I would have been like, oh, the C-Class is way better and everything, but this is nice. I mean, this, you know, this diamond stitching and quilted leather everywhere is super nice, makes it feel very high-end. And of course, just this motor is just something else. I mean, it's very quick. And this transmission, I don't think I mentioned in the engine part, but this is an 8-speed, you know, almost dual clutch transmission, and it's very quick. Damn. I mean, and it downshifts for you so well. I'm not the one downshifting, but I gotta tell you guys, man, this thing is sweet. It's very quick. Man, it's actually like, it's quick. Oh my gosh. It has radar distance cruise control, so you can set that up. You can basically have it follow the car in front of you. It'll do mild corrections on the steering. It's not full self-blown driving like Tesla, but it will sort of correct itself on the highway and everything. It will take slight turns. And really cool feature that I wish a lot of other automakers would implement, and I'll throw in a video here, is when you put a turn signal on, the right side of the instrument cluster, the digital one where the tach is, it kind of turns into a camera. So it'll let you see what's next to you, so that, you know, your blind spot. So if you turn it on, as long as the turn signal is on, it'll show you what is next to you. I mean, look at that. That's a cool feature. I wish other automakers in the segment would implement that. Now, of course, you do have a heads-up display up there. You guys wouldn't be able to see it anyways. They're kind of, you know, with the camera. But it shows you obviously how fast you're going. It shows you the current speed limit that you're at. And when you go over the speed limit, like right now, the speed limit here is 40. So if I go over 40, it actually turns orange. If I'm at like 41, it's orange. I believe if you go about 5 or 10 miles per hour over that, it turns red. So the higher it goes, it'll actually notify you. And now the car's actually steering itself. So I turned it on. As you guys can see, the steering wheel's making corrections on its own. The only thing I'm doing is just giving it throttle. So that is that's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, and this one is not screaming at me to put my hands on the steering wheel like some other automakers do. I'm very impressed. I am very, very impressed with this car. This is a very nice car, and it is a really good pick. I mean, look at it. It's correcting itself, and this is a very bumpy road here. I mean, let's see if it'll take this turn. No, it's making me do it. Okay, so yeah. So it won't take turns, but it will correct itself on the road, which is pretty cool. And that blow-off noise, of course, that's exaggerated because of the aftermarket intake and the blow-off. But so getting on the highway here, no problem getting up to speed. Absolutely zero issue getting up to the speed limit. Like I said, you know, I'm very impressed with this car. I mean, it really has surprised me, and I've said that multiple times now because it's true. I mean, the car is just, it's really good, and it's not crazy expensive like you would expect some of the other competitors to be. Now, of course, is it cheap? No, it's not going to be cheap. I mean, it's still a, you know, luxury sedan, entry-level sedan they call it, but I think this is a good pick. If you're in the market shopping for something in this segment, give the Genesis a try, because I think it's definitely worth it. And you have to drive the 3.3. Do not go for the 2-liter. I mean, I've never driven it, but with how good this motor is, you have to go for the 3.3. Of course, it's going to be more expensive, but it's also, of course, the one to go for, because it's so much funner to drive, and it's just, but yeah, let me know down below, you guys. Let me know what you think about the Genesis G70. Maybe you guys have one. Let me know. Do you guys like these cars, or you think that it's just another sort of Asian car that's trying to shoot way too high, you know, that's trying to punch above its weight? But I mean, I don't think so. And I am a German car fanatic, And I think this is a nice car. I mean, I think this thing definitely competes with Mercedes, BMW, and Audi by, you know, with no issues. And I mean, Lexus too. The IS, you know, this thing is up there as well. So let me know down below. I look forward to reading the comments. I want to know what you guys think about the that's the, you know, screaming at me that there's somebody in my blind spot. Thank you, Genesis. But let me know down below, you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take it easy.